Welcome back to Cinema Recaps. Today, I will introduce a Russian sci-fi movie from 2020 called Invasion. Spoiler alert, the storyline will be revealed. It has been 3 years since aliens appeared on Earth. In secret, the planet is strengthening its defenses, led by the USA, Russia, and China. A new satellite has been launched into Earth's orbit to monitor deep space and ensure no alien objects approach undetected. As the satellite activates, a strange alien ship appears, its parts moving like tentacles. Suddenly, a smaller shuttle detaches, heads straight for Earth, and enters the atmosphere. Somewhere in the ocean, a fishing boat floats with fishermen working and chatting. It's Hupapud. One of them looks out at the water and sees the alien shuttle crash, but he says nothing to the others. Later, the shuttle is seen moving underwater like a submarine. 4 months later, Yulia appears jogging with her dog. When she reaches an apartment complex, the dog suddenly runs off and doesn't return despite her calls. She asks the men accompanying her to help find the dog. Later, during her robotics class, her friend asks about some new information from the lab. Yulia replies that if she shares anything, her guards will shoot him on the spot. After class, the friend tries to confess his feelings to Yulia, but she knowingly stops him, saying he'll be safer if they stay friends. Her guards escort Yulia to her father's car, General Lebedev. He calls her friend Google when the boy boasts about working at Rostelecom. When they drop him off at the company, security checks his ID and finds out he's just an intern. Meanwhile, Yulia and her father continue driving. He jokes about smuggling her out of the country or helping her go into hiding. Yulia declines, not wanting him to face suspension. They arrive at a laboratory under the Russian Ministry of Defense, where a robot is seen smashing through doors and destroying a car. Yulia's father talks to a scientist at the lab, who explains that the robot is a form of biotechnology controlled by a human. General Lebedev comments that it's a Russian alien collaboration. The scientist adds that Yulia is the key to understanding how everything works. Elsewhere in the facility, Yulia is participating in an experiment. The lead scientist interrogates her about her encounter with the alien spacecraft, monitoring not only her answers, but her reactions. Her heart rate spikes when he mentions her friend who died in the incident. The same happens when he asks why she helped the alien. They asked her about her boyfriend, Artyom, and she became upset, refusing to answer. Suddenly, her boyfriend was brought into the lab. He started talking to her, making her incredibly angry, and she demanded that the experiment stop and that she be released. He apologized for hurting her as she struggled against her restraints. As he kept talking, the scientist encouraged him to continue. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy erupted. Her father rushed into the lab and pulled her out of the water tank, while Artyom was escorted away. He questioned why he was being detained while Yulia was free. Later, Yulia spoke with her father, pleading to be left alone without guards or anyone else around her. He agreed and left, meeting with a soldier named Ivan, instructing him to take the night shift and dress in civilian clothes. That evening, Yulia was drinking at a bar. She noticed Ivan following her and invited him for a drink, signaling that she was aware of his presence. He joined her at the bar, and she offered him another drink before they left. However, another man appeared, introducing himself as Hakan, and insisted that Yulia come with him despite her protests. Ivan and Hakan started fighting, but Yulia knocked Ivan out and left the bar with Hakan. They contacted an alien spacecraft called Sol, which tracked their location and located a vehicle to pick them up. The spacecraft took control of the digitized car, making it drive on its own. Sol communicated with them through the car's system while Ivan pursued them. The car skillfully pushed Ivan away without endangering anyone on the road. Ivan chased after them on a motorcycle and contacted General Lebedev to report the situation. The general ordered him to continue tracking, but also began evacuating the Ministry of Defense laboratory. He explained that the aliens had returned to Earth. In the car, Hakan warned Yulia that she was in danger. He said the experiments had gone too far, and they needed to leave immediately. The car sped forward, nearly hitting a pedestrian, but stopped just in time. Afterward, it told the other passengers to get out, keeping only Hakan and Yulia. Ivan caught up and shot one of the car's wheels, causing it to crash. Sol, the alien ship, tracked them from above and intervened to save them. Ivan lost track and had to report back to General Lebedev. Sol took Hakan and Yulia to a secluded house in the woods. Yulia reluctantly entered, but was unexpectedly greeted by her dog. She was shocked to realize that Hakan was the alien she had saved before, Hakan explained that the previous encounter had gone wrong, and now he wanted to fix things. They entered the house where Hakan shared about his life on Earth and how he had adapted. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. When Yulia opened it, she saw Google standing there. She was angry because he hadn't been clear about everything earlier. Hakan admitted that he was supposed to leave Earth after their first encounter, but he broke the rules to stay on Sol, near the planet. Yulia and Hakan kissed, and then they made love as Sol changed form during the night. The next morning, Yulia called her father. She told him she was with Hakan and that she no longer belonged on Earth. She asked him to keep it a secret, but General Lebedev ordered her signal to be tracked. Yulia returned to the house, where Hakan was preparing breakfast for her. Meanwhile, a tactical unit surrounded the house, ready to attack. General Lebedev ordered the team to stand down, but Sol intercepted the command and changed it to shoot to kill. The unit stormed in. Hakan fought off a few soldiers, and the two of them fled. Hakan's ship was ready for them by the river. He jumped aboard, but Yulia was shot as she tried to board. Hakan took off, but was targeted by a missile. He destroyed the missile midair, but the ship was heavily damaged. It plummeted from the sky and crashed into the river. Hakan tries to contact Sol, but Ra informs him that Yulia must be eliminated before his ship can be repaired. Hakan refuses, and Ra responds that he too needs to be eliminated. General Lebedev and Ivan try to catch up to them, but receive misleading information that Ra has intercepted. They discover that space defense is after the ship, and the General Lebedev is confused about who gave that order. Helicopters are seen heading toward the river, switching to combat mode and firing at the ship. Back at the facility, Aryam tricks his guard and gets inside the robot. He steals it and runs away in it. He reaches a bridge over the river and hears that a unit is after the ship, ready to shoot them down. The ship glides through the water but is shot at by two helicopters. It flies out of the water and falls through the air, with water trailing behind. Eventually, it crashes to the ground. The helicopters are in position, receiving the kill order from Ra. The robot suit Artyom jumps at one of the helicopters and rips it to shreds on the ground. The general arrives at the ship and checks for Yulia, but she and Hakan have already escaped. He carries her to an ambulance and meets Artyom, who notices her injuries and offers to get a doctor, but Hakan says she just needs water. Artyom flags down a car and they steal it, leaving the owner behind. While driving, Hakan explains how powerful Sol is and how it can control human technology. Artyom asks what Sol wants, and Hakan tells him that it only wants to eliminate Yulia. At the same time, Yulia's father arrives at the Ministry of Defense, where a special meeting is being held. He storms into the meeting, asking why such orders were given during the pursuit of the ship. The vice premier tells him to sit down as he's out of line. Then he asks Space Defense to explain their actions. They claim the orders came from the General Lebedev. A recording is played with the general's voice giving the order. The vice premier orders the news to be shown, revealing the devastation in Moscow from the chase. The media blames Yulia for the events and plays a deepfake video of her, making her sound like a terrorist, allied with the aliens threatening the city. They reveal that not only the video but the entire news program is fake, being broadcast from somewhere else, not a TV station. General Lebedev says that it is the aliens who are behind this and demands retaliation. The vice premier requests evidence to confirm this action. General Lebedev asks for special protocols to be implemented and orders that all communication should use analog technology. The vice premier agrees, and preparations for the switch begin. Meanwhile, Hakan, Yulia, and Artyom arrive at a store to buy water for Yulia. Hakan goes inside to buy water, and when he finds the right kind, he proceeds to the register. At this moment, everyone's phones in the store start ringing. People begin talking about Yulia and the possibility that she is a terrorist. Everyone receives the same message requesting to find and eliminate her. When Hakan returns to the car, a woman in the adjacent car recognizes Yulia and informs a nearby police patrol about her. Artyom immediately drives off as the police begin to chase them. Ivan also receives the same message while escorting the ship back to the Ministry of Defense. The fake message claims that the attack caused by Yulia has injured his son. All digital media is taken over by Ra, spreading information about Yulia, making her public enemy number one. Google receives a visit from a police officer asking about Yulia. Google's grandmother sends the officer away, and when the door is closed, she asks where he hid his friends. They are in the closet. Soon after, Artyom and Hakan submerge Yulia in water. Hakan tells him that Yulia is no longer human, and the pain is transforming her into an extremely powerful, even dangerous. Ra has calculated that Yulia's death could save everyone from her power, and that is why it wants to destroy her. Later, Google and Artyom intentionally get Hakan drunk and decide to take him to the Ministry of Defense. Artyom gives Google no choice in the matter. When they arrive, they are greeted by Yulia's father, ready to kill them. Google finally gives in and reveals where his daughter is. He confronts Hakan and demands that he reveal the coordinates of Ra, which only he knows. He tells Hakan that he must choose between Yulia and his people. Ivan tries to contact his wife, but cannot. He sees the news about Yulia when General Lebedev walks in, ordering his men to prepare the observatory and satellite, using the coordinates from Hakan. General Lebedev instructs Ivan to bring Yulia directly to him, without informing anyone else. The observatory locates Ra, and General Lebedev contacts the vice premier about the next step. They decide to engage with it violently, but need to destroy a satellite so it doesn't catch up with them and create more problems. The military sends Google to Rostelcom to take down their satellite. Once the satellite is down, they will only have a few seconds before it reboots. They will destroy Ra with a super secret weapon that the vice premier pretends they don't have, even though they do. General Lebedev convinces him that they have no other choice. Meanwhile, Yulia wakes up in the bathtub, her wounds gone, and gets ready to leave Google's grandmother's apartment. At this moment, Ivan shows up at the door. He's driving her somewhere, but she doesn't know that. He thinks she's to blame for the attacks and confronts her with the information, threatening that if his son dies, she will too. General Lebedev orders the launch of the special missile to destroy the satellite. They wait for the missile to destroy Ra and rejoice when it happens. But General Lebedev isn't fully convinced and asks for a full report and visual confirmation to make sure the alien spaceship is destroyed. Meanwhile, people gather on the streets demanding Yulia's prosecution. Ivan drives her through the crowd. He still doesn't believe her, but he eventually takes her to the Ministry of Defense, where her father and the others are. Ivan is disappointed with the General Lebedev and quits on the spot. Hakan uses a phone to communicate with Ra, which tells him it is ready for retribution, as it doesn't believe humans deserve anything. Ra tells Hakan that he can fly back, but he declines, still believing in mankind. The powerful spaceship begins a process of destruction on the planet, visible from everywhere, including the Ministry of Defense Tower. Ra is angry at humans for trying to use his technology to create weapons. Like Yulia, Ra creates a massive water dome around the Moscow area where she is and starts flooding the inside of the walls. The military tries everything, but they can't destroy the dome. They start evacuating people, telling them their only hope is to go as high as possible, staying on the rooftops. General Lebedev orders Hakan to grab Yulia and get her to the helicopter on the roof. He takes her and Artyom there, but he remains in the dome. Hakan returns to the General Lebedev and asks for his shuttle, telling him that he can try to destroy Ra by hitting it with the shuttle. The general realizes it's a one-way ticket and wants to go instead, but that's not possible since only Hakan can operate it manually. The general orders his men to evacuate but stays behind to help Hakan navigate toward Ra. The helicopter carrying Yulia and Artyom loses altitude and has to land, but it starts falling. The two of them jump into the water and are pulled onto one of the roofs with other people in the disaster area. The water keeps rising, and Yulia can't accept that all these people could get hurt because of her, so she surrenders. She asks Artyom to kill her, and the others around them hear her. Meanwhile, the general manages to get Hakan as close to Ra as possible until the water starts flooding the building and reaches the roof. Yulia is begging to die, wanting to end all the suffering she has caused. Ivan is there and sees her approaching with a gun. Artyom tries to protect her but gets shot instead. The water starts closing in on them, but Ivan has lost his nerve. The water overtakes them, and Hakan gets closer and closer to Ra, eventually speeding the ship toward it. Underwater, Yulia's bracelet activates and sends streams of water toward Ra, as Hakan also approaches it. Yulia pulls Ra out of the water, and military helicopters begin firing at it. Yulia continues to push the ship out, and the military drops a missile on it, destroying it suddenly. The water starts receding, and people begin coming up for air. The general is still alive, and Hakan's ship gets pushed back by the remaining water. As Ra is dying, it appears on the roof next to Yulia. The alien threat is destroyed in the daylight, saved yet again in the final moments. The General Lebedev attends a fake funeral for his daughter, and later a helicopter flies over Kamchatka. A person leaves the plane and walks off with the dog. It's the general tracking a specific location. When he arrives, he finds Yulia and Hakan. They embrace and wonder where to go next. Yulia touches the water, and a spaceship appears from below, Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.